This video is going to be a film study that's somewhat evaluative, but also some commentary about the spectacular season that Jack Campbell had in 2025. The stats clearly bear that out, support his first team All-Pro designation. I think the film gives an even more clear picture, to be honest with you. He was oftentimes the best player on the field from a snap-by-snap basis and then over the course of a game. Of course, you have to give a nod there to Brian Branch before his injury and then Aiden Hutchinson as well. The point is, Jack Campbell had a ton of impact. I'm going to make a comparison for his 2025 season that I usually reserve for like safeties, in particular nickel DBs. It's kind of got like a Muay Thai flavor to the analogy here, and that's that Jack Campbell is elite at coming forward, downhill, at angles against the run, or in fact, 0-degree break directly downhill, which, most football plays, run or pass, obviously do not involve that angle of approach, but laterally as well, right? On outside run or screens to the perimeter. So you've got, multiple directions that he's as good as it gets as a Mike linebacker. I have plays to illustrate all of this, obviously. If you're a Lions fan, you really don't need it, but I'll show them nonetheless. I think it's 12 or 13 plays. Finally, moving backwards, playing in pass drops. This will be zone, okay, back at particular angles. Maybe it's a 45, maybe it's a 30, so it's a little bit more steep. Along with all of those angles of movement that he was playing at a high level in terms of speed, the actual burst that he provides, the recognition/awareness, and then the tackling ability on the back end or the final half of the play. Along with that, you've got how often Jack Campbell was locked up in man coverage against running backs, design situations, right? As a Mike linebacker, the guy who's typically set to the field, you're not generally assigned to play man on running backs. Oftentimes a running back and or tight end are set into the boundary. One of those two, sometimes both. Kelvin Shepard's scheme in 2025 was, heavily weighted towards man at times, and Jack Campbell played at a high level in all of those things. His movement skills, his physical gifts, technical ability, meaning he does things the way that he's coached to. And oh, by the way, he was the captain of the defense in terms of taking the call from Kelvin Shepard and then delivering it to everyone else. On top of that, they asked him to play man on running backs a lot, as I mentioned, and he did so with a high degree of efficiency and connection. He's probably the best inside linebacker I saw in 2025 as a Mike linebacker. I don't compare Mikes to Wills because they're generally different positions with what they're asked to do post-snap, in particular against the pass. How much the ball is snapped when it's located on one hash, it's a ton. The Mike is typically set to the field, the Will to the boundary. Get to the film here in a minute, but what I really think pushes Campbell's 2025 over the top for me and makes it really memorable is that in a lot of these man situations against the running back, he's kind of blurring the lines between a typical or prototypical Mike versus Will. What I want to provide here or try to illustrate and annotate for you guys is the wide variety of plays where Jack Campbell is able to have an impact. So I'm going to use two that actually occurred back-to-back, of course, in Detroit's Week 3 win against the Ravens. This is second quarter. The Lions are up 14-7 at this point. This is the 4th and goal. Of course, it ends up being a goal line stand. For Detroit, it's a forced fumble. It's a sack/forced fumble for Jack Campbell. Ravens are very right-hand dominant in these 4th down situations, 2-point conversions, if you will. As a Ravens fan, it's been really predictable for years, and I think the Lions are just in on this, meaning they're prepared for it, and there's just great identification. It'll be first Jack Campbell with pressure on Lamar, and then second DJ Reed. They've got everyone covered, out into the flats, the right-hand side for the Ravens offense, the bottom side of our screen. And then that's Campbell not going for the fake, still closing distance on the quarterback. And you'll see this a couple of times against high-level guys. Once here, Lamar Jackson. Second, a little bit later on, it'll be Patrick Mahomes. Look, it's a great play by the whole team. Not just Jack Campbell here, clearly, right? Detroit's up 14-7. It's a big moment. You got everyone flowing to the right for the Ravens, left to right from the offense perspective, bottom right-hand portion of our screen. Whole bunch of white jerseys are there whenever there was a big play to be made in 2025. In particular, outside, on the perimeter, to the flanks. Jack Campbell was heavily involved. His speed, his awareness, and the way that he was coached, and maybe you could say unlocked by Kelvin Shepard, made him a tremendous pain for anyone to deal with. In this case, Lamar Jackson. I'm actually going to show the previous play, so we're giving these kind of in reverse order. This is the 3rd and goal preceding the snap that I just showed you, one of Campbell's 5 sacks on the season. So he's actually, this kind of illustrates his versatility, if you ask me. The Ravens have gone with an unbalanced line. Derrick Henry's in the game with Lamar Jackson, but the Ravens have put tight end and then 2 additional actual tight ends down here with a 6th offensive lineman. So totally overwhelmed the right-hand side of their offensive line, the left for the Detroit Lions perspective. Campbell's the outside linebacker. Now, yes, he's dealing with a rookie tight end. I think, an undrafted guy, maybe late in the draft guy, 84. Don't even, pretend to know his name, to be honest with you, and I'm a Ravens fan. But the point is, Kelvin Shepard trusts him to get out there and play on the edge, basically set a wall such that Derrick Henry or any running back, can't get to the outside. And then everyone else has got to fill from an inside-out angle. And you can see the Lions play great defense that night. I thought, or in this particular instance, I should say, of course, they did give up 30 points, but Jack Campbell's involved, trusted by the defensive coordinator, the defensive staff, and you can't blame those guys, right? He had 176 tackles on the year, I think 89 or 99 solo. He's just always involved at the point of attack. These plays that I'm going to show here and talk about, they're not really ordered by concept, to be honest with you. To a certain extent, they're progressional, meaning, week 3 plays for the Ravens. Here's some week 4 stuff, and we'll move on. Of course, you had the 3 AFC North wins in a row: Ravens, Browns, and then Bengals. This is a 2nd and 18. This is a beautiful pass read by Jack Campbell for a lot of reasons. You see a lot of NFL guys get beat on these kind of fake screens. So making it look like a screen down to the boundary, or to the field, the bottom side of our screen where Campbell is set up, and then ends up being an underneath screen to Njoku. You say, Coach, that doesn't look like a screen. Well, there's a left guard who's assigned to get over here and then work his way to the field and block Jack Campbell, or really whoever shows up, such that Njoku can catch it and then run underneath of that screen back into the boundary, where there ends up being a ton of space. Basically, the idea here for me is if Jack Campbell doesn't make this tackle, Njoku is off and running, and he's been a big run after the catch guy for the Browns for multiple seasons, in particular on 2nd and 3rd down and long. He's a guy that breaks a lot of tackles. In this case, not against Jack Campbell at all. I think this is a great play. You may disagree with elevating it to that status, but it's because I've seen Njoku be so successful on these kind of plays, these kind of underneath short, perhaps innocuous catches. In this case, a design screen. You can see the offensive lineman tasked to go get up to the 2nd level. If Campbell doesn't A, recognize it so quickly, and B, have the actual athleticism and burst and then tackling ability to finish the play, then that offensive lineman probably gets up to him. I'll give you the end zone angle so you can see it, a little more clearly. Of course, Campbell's off screen here for us. They got a wide receiver in the backfield, so kind of trying to elicit a reaction or maybe overreaction from the Lions defense. Campbell is going to have to beat this guard to Njoku, and he does it. Again, if you've paid attention to any level of football the last couple of years, any football at all the last couple of years in the NFL, you know that Njoku is a guy post-snap that makes plays. Here's the guard's path trying to get to Campbell. Look at all the open space that is there. Basically, over the course of the year, I feel like you've got Campbell making a number of plays like this earlier than he, quote, should be there, according to the way the offensive play caller drew this thing up. You can see he gets underneath that guard just quick enough such that Njoku can't work onto that space. Brian Branch is there potentially to make a tackle, but that's the whole idea. Don't let the ball carrier or the receiver get to the 3rd level of the defense. Jack Campbell, on the previous play I showed you against the Ravens, kind of set a wall as the edge defender against the tight end. Here he was a wall as the 2nd level defender. And Njoku's made a ton of plays like that against the Ravens in recent years, and the Lions were really able to hold him down. At least on this particular case, it was because of Jack Campbell. I think you've got the very next play In fact, here, 3rd and 16, that was only a 2-yard gain for Njoku on the screen. Campbell, again, is spot shadowed in yellow. You say, Coach, he's into the boundary here. Well, that's because they've kicked Anzalone over to match up with Njoku. Make it look like it could potentially be man, but you're really not selling that at all because Campbell's on the wrong side, from the running back who's set to the field. A little bit of an underneath route by Njoku. Real nice job of getting hands on him and trying to make the tackle initially by Campbell. And then Branch is going to come downhill and get involved with this as well. Basically, my point in trying to include this play, as well as the last one, I like packaging consecutive plays together so you can see the variety, the wide variety, like I referred to earlier, of how Jack Campbell was able to impact the game. You know it from watching the games and seeing the stats, his overall tackles. But what I'm trying to do here, at least, first of all, I really like Jack Campbell. I loved the pick that night. I thought, and you may not, recall this, and that's okay. You may not believe me. That's not okay because I could post up the video link for you to check it out yourself. But that evening or that week, of the draft, I vividly remember talking late into the night, 2:30 a.m., about the Lions drafting Jahmyr Gibbs and then Jack Campbell, and then the ensuing night, of course, the second rounders with Branch and Sam Laporta. Njoku's a guy that teams lose track of. The screen or the fake screen that I just showed you a moment ago, and then this 3rd and long, you wouldn't expect Njoku to break free. He's a guy that people lose track of. Jack Campbell doesn't lose track of everything. I think he's actually pissed off because he's going for the strip right here, and he's unable to get the ball out from Njoku as he falls to the ground. One nice play against the Browns. Believe me, it's no fun for me to watch Browns film as a Ravens fan, but also not a huge fan of the way that Kevin Stefanski handled things there in the last couple of years. So Campbell at Mike linebacker. Later in the game, it's fourth quarter, only a 10-point margin. This one I included to show, number one, how violent he is upon arrival. He gets to the football, period, right? But he's a hitter, and he's been a hitter since college. This is a play action. It's going to be completed to the running back underneath. And Jack Campbell pretty much, he plays the game of football in a very intelligent manner, number one. Number two, he's also very quick to react to things that are in front of him or laterally, whether it's a perimeter screen, whether it's a toss play, whatever. In this case, everything's in front of him, play action, and he's extremely violent finisher to the point where on social media and some of my comment sections, not Lions fans obviously, but have fielded comments from other people that he's dirty. I don't get any of that vibe at all from Jack Campbell. I think he plays the game in an extremely violent manner, very smart, also physically gifted. That shouldn't go unmentioned. Everyone knew that, coming into the draft, but extremely technical. And so when he does get there to the football, he tackles the right way. He's a huge football player, 6'5", 250, 255, somewhere in that range. This particular play, even though it didn't result in a fumble, it kind of reminded me of his forced fumble against DK, I think, early in 2024, where the impact was just so violent that it dislodged the football. Like I said, you had that unusual dynamic of playing three AFC North teams in a row, week 3, week 4, and week 5. This is an amazing play on a screen by Jack Campbell. It's late in the second quarter. Lions are up 2 scores. So a little bit of play action, and then it's Pirine out into the flats. This was a day, or during a stretch, I should say, where Campbell's playing at an extremely high level, number one. Number two, probably have some disruption here by Derek Barnes. This is, of course, before Joe Flacco was acquired, number one, before Joe Burrow returned from injury. But Campbell, again, notice what I'm talking about as far as how similar this is to the first play against Njoku. He's ahead of the offensive lineman, meaning the offensive lineman can't get out to him because of his recognition. He's able to basically beat the O-line to the spot because of his recognition, his speed as well, don't get me wrong, and that defeats the blocking scheme. If he's a half a step slower, then he's possibly able to be blocked, and you can see there's some numbers in that short space with 3 potential offensive linemen. I feel like Jack Campbell, maybe Muay Thai was a bad analogy early. You guys know, if you've watched my channel enough, that I like combat sports analogies. I also like basketball. He reminds me of like an NBA small forward who can get switched off on a power forward and deal with the post-up game, and he can get switched on to a point guard late in the shot clock, and he can keep that guy from getting to the basket. Anytime you're talking about an all-pro player, it's going to be difficult to whittle down their season into something that you feel is representative. And I think if you're going to do that, you've got to present high-level stuff. And fortunately for us and for me, Campbell did so many things well. One of them that apparently drew some attention from the league was this attempted punch out. It actually does end up being a forced fumble into the boundary. So he's the Mike linebacker set to the field. Anzalone is the will into the boundary. Campbell is the Mike linebacker set to the field. That, it's normally how things work. But they're going to bring a stunt from the field. They're right. And are going to try to flush the quarterback into the boundary. Successful there, if you ask me. As a blitzer, Campbell is committed. And in this case, he's pretty much setting a pick or a screen to allow Hutchinson to work underneath of. In addition, DJ Reader, the nose tackle, is going to become the edge rusher to the boundary because they're dropping Derek Barnes out of there. Hopefully I explain that in a way that makes sense. What we're really talking about here is Campbell's commitment as an unselfish guy, trying to take over or occupy the offensive lineman. In this case, the center passes him off, and then the center and another offensive lineman kind of peel back on Hutchinson and deck him. But the front side pressure, meaning in the quarterback's face, forces him to be flushed out. And then he throws the ball into the boundary, and you've got Campbell. This is, the pursuit, the range. For him, as far as range, it's twofold. It's not just the range of on the field, how wide of a swath of the field he can impact, but it's also like his wingspan, right? You're just talking about a guy who actually has NBA level, shooting guard / small forward type of body and type of wingspan. Perfect punch here. The only thing that makes this play a little bit more was disappointing that the Lions didn't get it, but more impressive is that Jack Campbell, he punches the ground just as hard as he punches to get the football out. I think he had 3 forced fumbles this year. I thought there was a 4th one, but it didn't go down in his statistical ledger. This is a great play, if you ask me, that shows you want as many guys on the field, on defense at least, like Jack Campbell as possible, because no ball carrier, no receiver is safe, until they're out of bounds or until the whistle has blown. This is one where I think you've got to start to recognize the basketball analogy, really the agility. He is lined up into the boundary here with the ball on the left hash, with Anzalone set to the field, probably as a result of 2 tight ends being on the field, both of which are set up into the boundary. So the Mike is set to the strong side. In any case, this is an option play, really an RPO. The inside tight end is running into the flats. I think the outside tight end is kind of blocking for a minute and then just maybe settling down like a snag concept. Running back, crossing Mahomes' face. Really, I would say this is, an RPO. Mahomes is going to end up keeping it. You got a gap exchange by the defensive end. I believe it's Lacey who's going to take the running back here. And then what that's going to do is, when I say gap exchange, Campbell's going to loop to the outside to basically take over Lacey's gap. Lacey is not being blocked at all, so he's running down the line to take away the running back and basically force a keep by the quarterback. It's great usage of personnel, in particular into the boundary, because Campbell has got exceptional speed, recognition, and he's the superior athlete here in this matchup against Mahomes. So you don't want a superior athlete to go for these, pump fakes or acting like he's going to shovel it here or here. Jack Campbell doesn't go for it at all, and I applauded him at the time in the reaction video, and I do once again, for being willing to finish the play no matter who has the football. In this case, Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Of course, they didn't really need much more help from the refs than they got that night, but Jack Campbell is uncompromising in that he will not give in and stop playing football until the whistle's blown, the ball's out of bounds, or the ball carrier, in this case Mahomes, is down or out. I get it that, to a certain extent, it's like, how many plays do you plan on showing here, Coach? I mean, how many do you want, number one? Number two, there's such a wide range of choices. I think I had 36 plays saved as highlights for Campbell and I whittled it down to these 12 or 13. This is at home, the defensive gem that Kelvin Shepard's group, pitched up against the Bucks. It's 7-0 into the first quarter, and it's going to be a screenplay to the outside. I think it's White up here, the running back, and then tight end down here to the bottom side is being guarded by Anzalone. Of course, Baker Mayfield knows this is two-man. You got man underneath, and then two high safety structure. Oftentimes that's teamed with a three-man rush, and possibly Derek Barnes or a Nowaski or whoever being the spy, the fourth added rusher. Quick screen attempted by Mayfield out to the right. First of all, Aiden Hutchinson. If Jack Campbell is a small forward or shooting guard who can guard up or guard down on an NBA basketball court, what is Aiden Hutchinson? He's like a power forward with shooting guard skills and agility. Here, he almost gets a hand on it, but what we're focusing on is Campbell. Great recognition, and again, the blocking scheme. Earlier, we showed you, two interior linemen, one for the Browns and one for the Bengals, who's trying to get out to him on a screen. In this case, 77, I think Wirfs is trying to get to him, and Campbell's going to beat that block, basically defeat the scheme underneath, and get to the ball carrier or the receiver, in this case, Rachaad White, before the blocker can get there. I think Jack Campbell played as good as an inside linebacker as pretty much anyone I saw during the 2025 season. The only guy that I would even mention as a possibility met or exceeded him will be the other first team All-Pro from Miami, Fred Warner as well, before the injury. Out of all the things that he did well and that I've tried to illustrate here, some of the sacks, covering running backs in man, stripping the ball or punching it out, really haven't focused on or showed much of him downhill against the run. This is in that same Bengals game. We're into the third quarter. Lions obviously had a big lead that kind of got cut down in the fourth. It's a downhill play concept. Normally, when Jamar Chase is lined up as the number 3 receiver, that's normally pass. The Bengals are trying to go away from some of their tendencies here, and this is what I would call a one-back log play. I will give you the end zone angle. Basically, the right guard is going to pull and try to work up to Jack Campbell. And, they actually do end up contacting each other, but that's the whole point, is where does the contact occur? The line of scrimmage is like between the 33 and the 34, and what you want an inside linebacker who's going to make contact within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage with any blocker. You don't want to sit back and accept the block. You want to be playing downhill. Look at what you're getting from Jack Campbell. Totally committed downhill to his angle. Takes on the blocker outside. It's not perfect, right? Trying to get to the outside arm of the blocker. And in this case, the running back fits directly outside of that pulling right guard. I'll give you the end zone angle, like I said. I call this a log play. Different people have, variable names for it. End zone, same play. So here's what I'm talking about. The right guard's going to pull, and he's going to wrap to go get Jack Campbell. But it's Campbell's commitment, his ability to recognize the scheme and see the left guard stepping out to the defensive tackle. Campbell's probably not seeing this, the left tackle stepping out to Aiden Hutchinson, but that's the scheme. They're stepping out and then logging with the backside guard. In this case, it's the boundary side guard, the right guard. Campbell downhill right now, refuses to allow any level of space, takes his side. Barnes kind of over the top. Campbell and Aiden Hutchinson are there. He's a spectacular football player. You guys don't need my convincing. If you're not convinced at this point, there really isn't going to be anything that can talk you into it. I think we knew around week 8 or week 9 that Jack Campbell was going to deserve some All-Pro designation. We were just trying to decide or figure out whether it was going to be first or second team. He had so many sideline-to-sideline plays in 2025 against the run or the pass. I wanted to include at least one of these. It was a downhill run concept. I know it's quite simple. I've certainly covered this two-man scheme a ton during the 2025 season. I'll give it one more little go, but somewhat abbreviated because we're here to focus on Jack Campbell. It's a 3rd and 6 against the Bucks. At that point in time, for whatever reason, this two-man structure was really giving people a ton of problems. So here's Jack Campbell, and he's going to be assigned to guard the running back, and he'll do a really nice job of it. But the combination of this scheme, the way that it works out, for example, you've got an underneath breaking route by one of the receivers to the bunch, and then the safety is going to jump that, whether it was Branch or Joseph back there or whoever, over the course of 2025, you got the same reaction. Campbell's going to lock that guy up, and then Derek Barnes is lined up as an edge defender to the boundary, and he's going to rush. It's going to be a three-man rush, and then I think it's Muhammad who's dropping out to be the plus one, the spy, if you will. Campbell all over the running back. It's really a one-man screen is what this is. So Anzalone is lined up to the field on the tight end in man. Campbell is taking the running back in man. And because they're releasing the tight end and the running back both to the same side, we're talking about the running back that's being guarded by Jack Campbell and the tight end that's being guarded by Anzalone. They've matched the numbers, 2 versus 2. You see it a lot in these teams kind of tagging this one-man screen. Some people call it an escort screen, whatever. But what they've done here is allow the safeties to be aggressive, take stuff over. You can see that the defender, I think it's Arthur Millette, who's in man coverage. He's kind of been picked or shielded from getting away. And, the second safety is over here. I believe that's to Evans, but I could be wrong. He might have been out of the game at that point. The idea here is Jack Campbell's coverage ability, Alex Anzalone as well, is taking away some of these easy access routes. Not that Baker Mayfield even looked, to be honest with you here. It's basically giving them nothing as long as some type of pass rush can get there. I will actually go over and talk about the two-man coverage a little bit more in the offseason, because I wonder how much more effective it could have been if you had a legitimate rusher on the other side opposite. Aiden Hutchinson's equal. Al-Quadin Muhammad had a fantastic year, I think 11.5 sacks. I don't think anyone listening or watching would put Muhammad on the same level as Hutchinson from a year-by-year basis. I've got 2 more kind of fun plays to show here at the end. One of them is a little bit frustrating. Of course, this one is during a home loss to the Vikings. But in any case, this is the 3rd and 10. He's going to overwhelm the running back in pass pro. And this is one of those situations where whoever's designing the defense, calling the plays, is just putting the Vikings in tremendous conflict as a result of the alignment. So what I mean is you've got Aiden Hutchinson out wide. Presumably he would be pass pro'd by the left tackle and or a chip help by the tight end. But they put Jack Campbell inside along with Alex Anzalone. And Campbell's going to go directly downhill, basically going to run through the running back's face and walk him back into J.J. McCarthy. I don't even know that Jack Campbell physically makes contact with McCarthy, but he gets credit for the sack, rightfully so, to be honest with you. Something to mention here is this kind of like yin and yang relationship that you get from rushing linebackers on one side, oftentimes is accompanied or married up to the outside linebacker from the opposite side, dropping out into the flats. And that fits Derek Barnes' skill set perfectly and his ability to stay disciplined with his eyes. But as far as Jack Campbell goes, I got one more of these. Him as a rusher, he's incredibly physical. Not only would I say he was the best Mike linebacker that I saw in 2025, one of the best 11 defenders overall either. And so that gets into a different discussion, right? You're going to have, is the 3rd, 4th, 5th best outside corner better than the number 1 and number 2 inside linebacker? Well, certain people are going to say that. What I'm saying is Jack Campbell was not only executing at an extremely high level for what he was asked to do, but he was asked to do a ton of job tasks and responsibilities at the same time that he was the defensive captain and the guy who was responsible for making play coverages or switches, I should say, pre-snap. Extremely strong, fast, right? So many physical gifts, but the technical ability, number 1, and commitment, as well as the dedication to his craft, I think just, became the perfect storm for the Lions, at least for their benefit in 2025. So kind of a pick here by Campbell, but he again overwhelms the running back. And this to me, he should have been a safety. I just don't see where there's any justification for it not being one when if the running back or receiver or tight end crosses the goal line at any point with the ball in her hand, it's a touchdown. The ball is in the end zone. The feet are in the end zone. Jack Campbell is in the process of tackling him. They gave him forward progress, whatever. We're focusing on Campbell here. It's the ability to pick the center like he does and then run through the open space. His physicality, his strength shows up here, and shines through. In my opinion, should have been ruled it was a sack, but should have been ruled a safety, which would have given, of course, at that point in time, a really unusual score of 5-3. I'll show it from the all-22 angle just so you can see the tenacity that Jack Campbell brings to the splits. Again, going into the A-gap, but kind of intentionally going into the center such that Derek Barnes can loop around. And this is really cool, man. I do like this design because you've got Aiden Hutchinson up top, presumably in a one-on-one, and then you're playing some kind of game on the inside. So from a Kelvin Sheppard standpoint, you're trying to give the defense two opportunities to stunt with Campbell and Barnes, and then Hutchinson rushing off the edge to possibly defeat the pass pro scheme and get to the quarterback. Branch is possibly in position to try to take over Jake Ferguson. Rock Ya-Sin is falling off. So they do a really nice job, I think, on some of these coverages. The Lions. And Jack Campbell's a big part of it. He's not involved in the coverage aspect here. He's a blitzer, right? And takes advantage of it. One of his 5 sacks on the year. Ironically, he only had 5 quarterback hits in 2025. So he 100%, I guess, in terms of quarterback hits and sacks. He's not a guy who will be asked to blitz or rush the passer from a prototypical edge defender standpoint. I don't think that necessarily suits him, maybe later in his career, but he's got all the stats. Deserved first team All-Pro, in my opinion, by far. 176 tackles, like I said earlier. It was 89 solo, 5 sacks, 4 PDs, 3 forced fumbles. I thought it was 4, but maybe there's one that, got called back for a penalty. 9 tackles for loss. He was able to do a ton of things at an extremely high level, consistently, on a week-by-week and then snap-by-snap basis. There are a ton of guys who are dedicated mics, who play to the field, meaning they're playing in more space, even though the hashes in the NFL are close together, 18 feet 6 inches apart. The Mike linebacker plays in more space than the Will does. Got to be quick, athletic, smart, right? Have great range of movement. Campbell's got that, in a dual nature. Range of movement from ability to cover the field, but also range with his height, his wingspan, his reach at 6'5". The NBA analogy probably breaks down some because he only plays, well, maybe it actually works because, he only plays defense in the NFL. Great blitzer, 5 sacks, really committed on his stunts or picks. That's why I tried to include some of those plays for you guys to take a look at. Man, zone coverage, extremely aware. The whole Jack Campbell talking point conversation, he can't cover. That was a dumb conversation anyway. Did the scheme getting, maybe more simple in 2025 help out? That's possible. It's a topic for another video, really, the Sheppard scheme. Is it too simple? Is it too easy for quarterbacks to figure things out, in particular on third downs? I would say that part and parcel to that, or a related point, is you need someone opposite Aiden Hutchinson, like a Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, who work together, like a T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig. Of course, those 3 guys all had less sacks than Hutchinson and Al-Qadim Muhammad this year individually, but on a year-by-year basis, those guys are able to put up 20, 24 sacks, if not more, from a combination standpoint. Hutchinson had 14.5, 35 quarterback hits. He had 6 sacks in the last 4 weeks. From start to finish this year for the Lions, Hutchinson and Campbell were obviously the best defenders, right? I think Campbell is a complete anomaly as a Mike in that he covers running backs a lot. That doesn't happen a ton with Mikes across the NFL, unless it becomes a dime look and they're moved kind of into the boundary. Like I said earlier, I think we all knew. When did you know or suspect or begin to think that Campbell would be an All-Pro? I would say about week 8 or week 9, I was like, okay, he's going to make this. It started to become confirmed for me. And, you never know what the voting is going to show, right? You have situations like someone from the Packers press clearly is voting for their players because I think they had 4 or 5 guys get 1 vote each who no one else voted for. Jack Campbell's deserving, made very few mistakes that I can notice and even try to detail to you. If you were to ask me the efficiency rating for the 3 Mike linebackers that I was able to watch in 2025, I'm talking about Roquan Smith for the Ravens, Ernest Jones IV for the Seahawks, part of one of the best defenses in the NFL, obviously, and then Jack Campbell for the Lions. I would say Roquan Smith in the 88 to 90 range, somewhere in that area. Ernest Jones IV probably in a 90 to 92 range as far as efficiency, meaning accomplishing his tasks and whatever he's responsible for. All 3 of these guys are Mikes. That's why I'm talking about them as a trio or as a group. Jack Campbell, I would say, in my mind, my observation, 95% plus. And he's got the production to go along with it. 176 tackles, captain of the defense. Things will, change next year, I'm sure, right? With Barnes probably moving to will linebacker, I suspect that the Lions staff will just morph or shift things a little bit. They'll probably draft or maybe sign a dedicated pass rusher over there on the other side, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Maybe the defense will become a little bit more versatile coverage-wise. As it relates to Jack Campbell, I think he can fit in any structure and any call, any coverage call. I think the film here kind of shows that across the 17 games of 2025, even though I only included 12 or 13 plays, kind of whittled it down and cut it to where it was more easy to digest. These videos at this point always end up being 28, 30 minutes. So, we went a little bit past that. Forgive me for that if you don't enjoy it. If you guys have any questions about why it took me so long to produce Lions content, I'll give you a couple answers or heads up now. Number one, the Ravens firing John Harbaugh was something I had a little bit of an inkling about the previous Monday. Like, how come there's been no news, no announcement of anything for the Ravens, right? There's no schedule for who's going to address the media. It was kind of like they had given us a hint, if you will. Hey, we're not scheduling John Harbaugh. We're not telling you when he's going to address the media. Well, because he's not going to. So Monday I started working on, last Monday, almost a week ago, I started working on a video about the Harbaugh situation, first of all. Second of all, trying to get things produced post-holidays was extremely difficult with all of our travel. Hopefully I did justice to Jack Campbell's 2025 season, the impact that he had from a production standpoint, but also from a snap-by-snap basis. All of the things that Kelvin Shepard asked him to do, I think he executed with incredible efficiency and tenacity and violence upon his arrival. If you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number one. Number two, if you have either other suggestions for things I could cover as the offseason process begins. Of course, I will talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Aiden Hutchinson being voted second-team All-Pro. But if you have other suggestions, please let me know in the comment section. And then finally, if you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study look at Jack Campbell that also serves as really a commentary for his first All-Pro designation, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.